Better Minecraft. It's Minecraft, but just a lot better. Better Minecraft is intended to add lots of cool stuff while maintaining the vanilla feel. It adds a ton of cool new mobs, many different building blocks and biomes, some very, very powerful enemies, and a ton more. That guy waving? Yeah, that's me. And I will be attempting to survive 100 days here. I will adventure across the world to discover lots of cool things, build a beautiful base, and fight every boss I can. I will have to do all of this while not dying, because of course, as always, it's hardcore, which means I got one life. I die and it's over. Now let's begin. Day 1, I spawned next to a big building and figured out how to do emotes. I then ran into the forest next to me and found a village. At this village, I found a waypoint thing, which will end up being very useful. I then gathered some wood and began looting the village. After it was fully looted, I began adventuring more. And soon after, I found yet another village, this time in the desert. I began looting it by stealing all their hay bales, because I desperately needed some food. I also ended up finding yet another waypoint thing, which I now know are called waystones. After stealing everything from the locals and putting them into poverty, I began adventuring some more. It was beginning to become night and I needed to find shelter fast. Luckily, I soon found a village, and at the village, I may have stole a bed from a child so I could sleep. Anyways, day 2, I stole some more hay bales and went on my way. While running through the desert, I found a big building thing. I had no way to defend myself, so I made a wooden sword. I then opened my map and marked it with a waypoint. There was no way I was gonna go inside this big thing, so I ended up just killing some cows instead. I spent the rest of the day traveling and ended up finding a small little cabin, which I stayed the night in. Day 3 started with me stealing the bookshelves from inside the cabin. I then found yet another cabin next to a village, but this cabin had a music disc and a jukebox, which meant I had to jam out to it. After looting the cabin, I went and looted the whole village, which had some good stuff, including an armored apron, which I threw on for a little bit of armor. After adventuring some more, I found what looked like ruins of a village. At these ruins, I found some iron armor, a diamond, and best of all, an eye patch. Once I looted the whole ruins, I had a decent amount of stuff, and I was running out of room in my inventory. So, to help out with that, I made myself a backpack. I also made some iron tools and replaced my eye patch with an iron helmet. I now was ready to do some more exploring. While running through the woods, I found a horse and tried to ride it, but while doing so, I began getting shot with arrows from floating bows. Luckily, I had a shield and was able to get away, but it was pretty close. It began turning night yet again. I needed another place to sleep, and I ended up finding a dirt hut which had a bed in it, so I was able to rest there. Day 4, I found a big castle thing and made a waypoint on the map for it. I then went sailing across the sea, but not any ordinary sea, an unknown sea. No idea what that means, but I got an achievement for it. The only real difference I noticed was the water was a little darker shade of blue. After sailing for a lot longer, I found yet another big castle thingy, so I of course had to mark it on the map. I arrived on land and saw an unusual creature that I've never seen before, so I killed it. I then realized that it had a friend. Whoops. Lots of running later, I found myself in a big pumpkin patch, which was weird, but cool, I guess. I killed lots of cows here and continued on my way. After some more running, I ended up finding a massive ship floating in the sky, and it looked pretty dang cool if you ask me. As it started to become night, I yet again found another village. I also may have stolen another bed from a child, so I could sleep. Day 5, I sailed the ocean blue, and while doing so, I found a pack of seals, one of which looked like my dog when he sleeps. I then continued sailing and ended up finding your mother. I'm sorry, that was a little mean. Anyways, after some more sailing, I ended up at a jungle. In this jungle, I found a village, which I began looting right away. In one of the chests, I found a monocle, so I threw it on to see what I looked like. After running through the jungle the rest of the day, I needed to find a place to sleep. But this time, I actually had a bed on me for once, so I placed it on top of the tree and went to sleep. Day 6, I found a bamboo forest, which also had a jungle temple, so I went inside and looted it. Sadly, it didn't have anything that good, just some iron, gold, and an ancient dart, which I don't really know if that's valuable or not. After lots and lots of running, I found myself atop a mountain next to some yaks. And on this mountain was a big building. I went to go check it out, and to my surprise, it was a place for villagers. So I didn't actually have to fight anything, thankfully. But of course, I did steal everything I could from them. I then went sailing for the rest of the day. While sailing, I found a few ships. I wasn't too sure if I could take these out, but I began trying. While doing so, a vindicator decided to jump out and steal my boat. That's not very nice. But what is nice is when I killed him, he gave me his axe, which does a ton of damage. As I continued looting the boat, I ended up finding a flint and steel and thought to myself, what if I just burned down the whole ship? So that's exactly what I began doing. While the boat burned, I went to some driftwood nearby so I could place my bed and sleep. Day 7, I killed the remaining pillagers on the ship and began looting it. And let me tell you, it had some pretty good things, such as some enchanted armor and diamonds. Next to the ship was another ship that looked a lot more dangerous, so I didn't go to it. I continued sailing. Soon after, I found another ship, so I began burning it down. I then went to a nearby island to watch. Once it was done burning, I began looting. I once again got some pretty good stuff, including some more diamonds. I sailed the ocean for the rest of the day and went to sleep on an iceberg with some seals. Day 8 started by me trying to blend in with my surroundings. I'd say I did a pretty good job. For the rest of the day, I sailed the ocean and burned down another ship. This ship ended up having a lost treasure map on it, so I immediately went to go look for it. By the end of the day, I found it, but it didn't really have anything too good in it, just some iron. Day 9 was much of the same as I sailed the ocean, taking out ships and looting them in the process. After doing this for a whole day, I ended up at a village in the desert and went to sleep. Day 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 were spent doing the exact same thing as before, just sailing the big ocean and looting ships in the process. And I ended up collecting a ton of loot, and I mean a ton. I had to make multiple backpacks just to hold all of it. At the end of day 14, I finally found the place I wanted to build my base. Day 15, I began making the entrance to my base, and while doing so, a little goblin came to visit me, and he actually had some decent trades, but I didn't really have anything. After lots of digging and block placing later, on day 17, I had the start of the entrance completed, but there is still a lot more to do. At the end of day 17, I made some bookshelves and an enchantment table. I then placed it all down, and just like that, I had a level 30 enchant table. Day 18, I began a staircase down to mine. The next thing I wanted to do was go to the Nether, and in order to do that, I needed obsidian. I used a water bucket to turn some lava I found into obsidian and began collecting. Soon after, I had enough to make a Nether portal, so I headed up to my base and built it. But before I went in, I wanted to be safe about it, so I made myself a gold helmet just so the piglins would be chill with me. Once I was in the Nether, I began collecting quartz for lots of levels. I did this until I was level 49, then headed back home. I arrived home at night, so I went to sleep. Day 21, I went back into my mine looking for lapis. It was the last thing I needed to enchant, and luckily I quickly found some. It was now time to enchant, so I grabbed all the diamonds I stole from the pirate ships and began making full diamond armor, including a diamond shield, which looked pretty cool, not gonna lie. I then made a full set of diamond tools as well and began enchanting. I got a few good ones, such as a vein mining pick and an axe, which are very, very cool. And now that I was fully geared, I went to go take out another pirate ship that was in front of my base. Days 23 to 26, I worked on my base some more by finishing the outside of the entrance and adding some lanterns. It was looking pretty good. The next thing I wanted to do to the base was mine out the floor entrance and make it into all water. It's hard to explain, but by day 28, it was all done. I then added a little dock, and in the process of making it, I destroyed it all with breaking one block. Yeah, I may have forgotten I had vein miner on my axe. Luckily, it was pretty easy to build again. Day 29, I finished the entrance wall. I then began mining out the first room. After lots of mining, I realized I needed lots of spruce wood for my floor, so I sailed to go find some. It took a while, but eventually I ended up finding 2 cherry blossom trees, which luckily are made of spruce wood. My vein mining axe made it very easy to cut them down. It also was very satisfying. Once I had the spruce wood, I headed back home. When I arrived home, I began mining out the rest of the floor. Once that was done, I needed to get more spruce wood, so I began bone mealing the saplings I got earlier on the island near my base. Once I had enough, I went back to base and finished off the floor. I also made some doors for the entrance. The base was slowly but surely coming together. Day 30, I replaced all of the walls in my base with the same block I used on the outside, and once that was done, it was time for the roof, which I decided to make spruce wood. Lots of block placing later, it was done. I then made some staircases that would eventually go up to the second floor. Day 32, I began making my chest room. It required a lot of wood, so I had to go back to my little island to collect some more. Once all the chests were placed, it was time to move everything into them, as well as move my enchant table inside because it's currently just chilling in the entrance, floating above the water. Like a lot of my stuff currently. Yeah, it's kind of a mess out there right now, but hey, we'll eventually get to moving it all. Day 33, I tried parkouring into my horribly placed nether portal. After lots of attempts, I eventually gave up and placed a block to get in. Once I was in the nether, I began adventuring, trying to find myself another fortress. After looking for a full 2 days, I was unsuccessful, so I headed back home. Day 35, I arrived home and grabbed myself lots of gold. I then headed back into the nether to trade with some piglins. I trapped some in a hole and began trading. Once I gave them all the gold I had, I headed back home. But something weird happened. Instead of my nether portal taking me home, it took me to some underground cave. Luckily, it ended up being pretty close to my base. I just had to do some swimming. Once I arrived home, I put everything I got from trading into my chests. I then grabbed a ton of blocks and 2 waystones. I placed one in my base and one in the nether and tested it out. It worked pretty dang well. Now that I had it working, I picked up the one in the nether and began searching for another fortress yet again. After lots of bridging, I found myself in a very weird biome. And what's even weirder is I found a witherhead just chilling. So I guess that's pretty cool. In that same biome, I ended up finding a nether fortress. Finally. I built up to it and began exploring. I quickly found a blaze spawner and began collecting some blaze rods. While doing this, an ultimate blaze thingy spawned. It had like shields and fired like 100 fireballs at a time. It was pretty scary. And if I remember right, this was one of the first mob votes that lost. I was eventually able to collect a total of 9 blaze rods. I then placed my waystone and headed home. Day 36, I arrived home and made myself a brewing stand. I also turned all my ender pearls I got from trading into eyes of ender. I was now ready to search for the end portal, and that's exactly what I began doing on day 37. After a full day of traveling, I ran into a cute little castle. I went inside and began looting, but to be honest, it had absolutely nothing. What it did have was a perfect diving board I could jump off to leave. After another full day of traveling, I was still not at the end fortress. Instead, I was at a village where I stayed the night. Day 39 started with me saving some of the locals from a few threats. Wow, what a nice guy, am I right? I then continued on my way. Soon after, I ended up running into a desert temple. So of course I began looting it. And in one of the chests was a freaking fire dragon egg. As you can tell, I was pumped. Once I was done looting, I continued on my way. Soon after, my eyes of ender started going down. And you know what that means? It means I was pretty close to the end fortress. So I began digging down and immediately found it. Now I just needed to find the portal room. So I began looking around. And let me tell you, this end fortress was a lot different than the vanilla one. This one had much bigger rooms and smaller rooms with beds and stuff and chests, and it was definitely a lot scarier. After searching for a couple days and using a majority of my eyes of ender, I still could not find the ender portal. So I decided to head home using a waystone. Day 41, I arrived home and grabbed myself the rest of the ender pearls I had. I then went back to the nether fortress to collect more blaze rods. When I had collected enough being 8, I headed home. Once I arrived home, I grabbed the rest of the gold I had and headed back into the pit of piglins to trade. I was trading to get some more ender pearls, but unfortunately, they didn't give me any. How rude. Day 42, I made the rest of my ender pearls into eyes of ender. I also made myself a ton of torches, then went back to the end fortress to try to find the portal. And after lots and lots of searching, I finally found it. I placed my waystone and teleported home. Once I was home, I searched through all my chests for some extra gold. And luckily, I ended up finding some. So it turned out I wasn't out of gold. Thank goodness. I then went back to trade with the piglins. And thankfully, this time they actually gave me some ender pearls. Also, can we just take a second to realize that I've given these piglins all full gold armor and tools? Anyways, I immediately turned the ender pearls into eyes of ender and headed back home. I then went to the end portal and placed the final 2 eyes. Day 42, I grabbed all my arrows and headed into the end. As soon as I was in the end, I placed down a waystone. I now needed to take out the end crystals on top of the tower, so that's exactly what I began doing. Lots and lots of arrow shots later, I had taken out every single tower. It was now time to take out the ender dragon. I eventually ended up shooting all the arrows I had. Thinking back, I probably should have made a much better bow, but hey. I also ended up using all the XP I had by teleporting back and forth from the base. So I was kind kind of stuck. And instead of fighting the dragon with my sword, because I was too scared for that, I killed some endermen for XP, so I could teleport home. Day 44, I went to the Nether to trade even more. I was trading for some spectral arrows and ended up getting about 25. That was nowhere near enough, so instead I grabbed all the TNT I had gotten from looting ships and went back to the end to use it on the Ender Dragon. I would place a bunch of TNT and wait for the dragon to land, then blow it up. And it worked good a few times, but by the time I was out of TNT, it still had about quarter of its health. So I again had to head back home to get some more supplies. Day 45, I went out and started killing every bird I saw to get lots of feathers. After doing this for a full day, I got a total of 14. I then went back to base and began digging gravel to get lots of flint. Day 46, I went back to the end to continue fighting the Ender Dragon. After lots and lots of amazing bow shots later, I finally ended up defeating the Ender Dragon. I gathered all the XP I could find from the dragon. I also made sure to grab the dragon egg because I tend to forget that kind of stuff. Once I had the egg, I jumped in the portal to teleport home. I grabbed a ton of blocks from my chests and headed straight back to the end. Now that I was in the end, it was time to go find an end city. I built up to the portal, threw my ender pearl in, and the mission began. After lots and lots of bridging, I ended up finding an end boat, but not the one with the elytra in it. This boat was just chilling on the ground. I began looting it, and to my surprise, it actually had some pretty good things in it, such as a totem of void undying, some XP bottles, and an end city map. Luckily, I didn't need this map just yet because right next to this boat was an end city. Unfortunately though, this end city did not have an elytra boat. So I opened up the map and began heading towards the end city. Lots and lots of block placing later, I finally found it, and yet again, it did not have an elytra boat. However, I still did loot it. After I was done looting it, I continued to look for another end city and quickly found another one, and yet again, it did not have an elytra boat. I looted the end city, then teleported home using a waystone. Day 50, I arrived home and began clearing out the top floor of my base. Day 51 was much of the same as I continued clearing out the top floor. Once I was done, I began replacing the walls. Day 52, I made the ceiling of the second floor into spruce. Now that the second floor was done, I took down my scuffed nether portal and replaced it upstairs. The entrance of the base was now all cleared out. It was looking real good, but to make it look even cooler, I added a window to the second floor. Day 53, I began my next big project. If you don't remember, on my way to find the end portal, I got myself a fire dragon egg. So I'm going to be building it a place to live. I started by building a big circle for the floor, then added some pillars. Day 54, I spent the whole day putting legs on the base, and let's just say it turned out looking like a spider. Yeah, it didn't look good at all, but hey, I'll fix it later. Day 55, I began by gathering lots of sand by a nearby beach. Once I was done, I headed home and started smelting all the sand into glass. Day 56, I continued building the dragon den by adding lots of glass. And by the end of the day, it still looked pretty ugly, not gonna lie. Day 57 started with me connecting the dragon den to my base with a tunnel. Once that was done, I built myself a bedroom and it was looking good. Day 58, I moved my enchant table upstairs. After that, I continued building the roof of the dragon den. Day 59, I spent the whole day collecting some more sand for glass. Day 60 started with me trying to fix the legs of the dragon den, and by the end of the day, I'd say I made it look much better. No more spider legs. Day 61, I built a tube thingy on the dragon den. The purpose of this is so when I want to fly on the dragon, I can fly him out of the base and back into the base. And you know what? I think it made the building look a ton better. Still kind of scuffed, but hey, it is what it is. Now that the den was done, it was time to put my dragon in it. So I grabbed the egg, placed it down, and clicked it. It was now incubating. While it was incubating, I made myself a fishing rod and enchanted it, then began fishing. Because in order to tame the dragon, I needed lots of fish. After I did a little fishing, I went to sleep. Day 62 started with me doing a little more fishing. Once I had another fish, I headed back to the dragon den. When I arrived, to my surprise, the dragon was already hatched. Look how cute he is. Anyways, I tried to tame him, but he ate all my dang fish. How rude. So in order to get a lot of fish fast, I sailed to a burnt down pirate ship near my base and took all the fish it had. I then gave the dragon a few more fish, and just like that, he was now tamed. Now he just needed to grow into a big dragon. While waiting for him to grow, I decided to do some mining. And I ended up finding a deep, dark dimension block, which I mined. But I'm not gonna lie, it was really scary down here, so I quickly dipped. Day 63, I went looking for some end cities to get an elytra. Since last time, I was unsuccessful. After lots and lots of looking, I was unable to find an end city with an elytra boat. I found multiple end cities and got lots of good loot from those, but sadly, none of them had an elytra boat. So I teleported back home. Now that I was home, I grabbed a name tag to name my dragon. After lots of thought, I decided to name it Ironiq, which, if you don't know, is a dragon from Skyrim. I gave him his name tag and he was now named. For the rest of the day, I gathered lots of spruce wood, and with that wood, I made another enchant table to make it symmetrical with the other one, because my OCD was going crazy. Day 65, I spent the whole day hanging out with Ironiq. I even made myself a table and chair. How cute. Day 66, I headed down to the mines to do a little bit of mining. I was mainly just trying to get lots of coal and lapis, and after lots of mining, I'd say I did a pretty good job of that. All of day 67 and 68 were spent gathering lots of feathers for arrows. Why do I need arrows, you may ask yourself? Well, while I waited for my dragon to continue to grow up, I wanted to take out another boss. And if you don't remember, when I went looking for a nether fortress, I found a weird biome that ended up having wither heads in it. 3 to be exact. So, you know what that means. I was gonna take down the wither. Before I did though, I needed to make a better bow because the one I had was terrible. I used an anvil to upgrade my bow with a book I got from the end city, and just like that, it was now time to take on the wither. I headed down in the mines and began mining out a place to take it on. Once I had a big enough area, I began placing down the wither. Boom, the wither was now spawned. I began by shooting it with arrows, which thankfully this time actually did lots of damage. After shooting it for a little, it was now in sword mode. I gave it a few big whacks, and just like that, the wither was defeated. I did it. I grabbed its nether star, then headed back to base. Day 69, lol, began by me visiting Ironiq, and as you can tell, he's grown quite a bit. I tried to see if he was big enough for a saddle, but sadly, he wasn't just yet. While I waited, I wanted to add some more features to the base, and the feature I began building were these tube things coming out of the mountain with water coming out. By day 70, it was done, and I'd say it looks pretty good, but the base still needed a lot more work, so I began building more. Day 71 started by me checking up on Ironiq, and finally I was able to put a saddle on him. I immediately hopped on it and began flying. After a little test drive, I landed back at base. The tube thing I built in the dragon den worked perfectly, even though it may look a little weird. Do you guys remember that spaceship thing I found in the beginning of this video? Well, I started flying to it with Ironiq. On the way, I found a desert temple, and in it, I found another fire dragon egg. Let's go. I continued on my way, and guess what? I found yet another temple, and this one had 2 more freaking fire dragon eggs. Let's go. We're gonna have a herd of dragons at this rate. After traveling for the rest of the day, I found a village to sleep at. Day 72, I continued flying to the spaceship thingy. I eventually found it. I flew around it to take a look, and I'm not gonna lie, I got super scared and felt like I was gonna die somehow, so I just began flying back home. Later that night, I decided to try to take out a pirate ship with Ironiq. Let's just say this didn't go too well. Ironiq kept wanting to go fight when I was just trying to dip. This caused him to take a ton of damage, but luckily we were able to get away and safely arrived home. I placed all 3 of the dragon eggs and they began incubating. I then went to sleep. Day 73, I spent the whole day taking out ship after ship, getting lots of good loot, including some boots with Frostwalker, which made me able to just walk on water everywhere. Pretty handy. I also gathered lots of fish in order to tame all my new dragons. Day 74 began by gathering lots of sand. After that, I headed to the dragon den. At the dragon den, I used all my fish to tame the dragons. Now that they are all tamed, I want you guys to give me some ideas on what to name them. Let me know in the comments below and I'll pick my favorite ones. Day 75, I began building more of my base. Day 76 and 77 were spent doing the exact same thing, but I forgot to record. But here's my progress. Lots and lots and lots of building later. On day 80, I still wasn't done, but I did go check out how the dragons were doing, and to my surprise, they were all grown up. Sadly, I only had 2 more saddles, so one of them ain't gonna be having a saddle. After that, I continued base building, mainly working on my farm area. Day 83, I went looking for lots of dirt for my farm. Once I collected a bunch, I headed back home and started placing it. By day 84, the farm area was done. I didn't have enough seeds to fill it up, so it kind of looked a little weird. But hey, day 85, I noticed something weird started happening. The water near my base would keep turning into ice, like lots of ice, and I had to keep mining it. The top of my base also started getting snow on it, which was weird. My guess is that it's winter, maybe? But whatever it is, it's quite annoying. Day 86 to 90 were spent building even more of my base. I built walls, paths, roofs, stairs, and more. And by the end of day 90, I was done. Well, at least for now. And may I just say, it looked really good, even though snow was covering it. Day 90, I grabbed myself all the TNT I had, a bunch of picks, and headed into the Nether. My next mission was to collect lots of ancient debris. I dug down and began using all the TNT. Lots of explosions later, I gathered a few pieces of ancient debris, but I wanted more. So, since I was out of TNT, I just began strip mining instead. Lots and lots of block breaking later, all my picks were nearly broken, and I began heading home. I collected a total of 31 ancient debris, and on the way home, I found a trading goblin, and this goblin had a very good trade. 4 ancient debris for 5 netherite scraps. So of course, I traded all I could. Day 93, I arrived home. I grabbed all my diamonds and began repairing my pickaxes. Day 94, I upgraded and repaired all my diamond armor. After I was done, I began turning all of it into netherite. And just like that, I was full netherite. I looked good. Day 95, I hopped on Parthenax and headed to a nearby village. I then stole 2 of their villagers and boated them home. Day 96, I moved the villagers into one of the buildings I made. I then headed back to the village to steal all of their wool. With the wool, I made a ton of beds for the villagers so they could start breeding. Later that night, I began cleaning the base, since there was stuff literally everywhere. I also placed a ton of lanterns for some lighting. After lots of cleaning, I went to go check on the villagers, and there ended up being a few babies, so that's good. I then went to chill out and do some fishing. Day 99, I took a look at my base from the nearby island. And personally, I think the base turned out pretty cool for 100 days. But there was one last thing I wanted to do. I hopped on Parthenax and flew to a nearby lighthouse. I began going through it and looting it. The only thing it really had was a buried treasure map. So I decided to fly to it with Parthenax. And I arrived and began digging for it. It took a while, but I eventually found it. And guess what? It had a freaking water dragon egg in it. Guess we're gonna have to save that one for next time. For the rest of the night, I watched the sun go down for the last time. I then went to sleep. It was now day 100. I did it. I survived a total of 100 days in better Minecraft without dying. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know how you guys think I did and what you guys want me to do in 200 days. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to stay up to date with my channel. If you don't, Parthenax is gonna have to pay you a visit when you're sleeping. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.